Okay, now do you have any question before I begin? All right, so the course, as I said, as you have seen, we have spent a lot of stuff on, so many stories and novels and short stories and so on. And really the development of the American literature and the American, as you know, because the course is called Survey. So today, and in this little section here, we would like to talk about something about modernist, really modernist movement and modernism and modernist literature. Now, really, or at least as like an introduction to modernism, later on when you study other courses related to modernism. Really the term, if you like, briefly, we can say the term modernism is something really complicated in many ways. It's something that you find not just in literature or, in architecture, in paintings, in music, in all sorts of really arts, if you like, as well as could be, as I said, architecture and buildings and whatever. So modernism as a trend or as a way of writing or narration or something like that, it's actually to do with the reflection or reaction against realism. Because realism throughout the 19th century, you find people and writers and poets and novelists and people like that who were so much keen and honest and faithful towards reality, in the sense to say, to prove, to want you to accept and to believe that this is reality. This is something truthful, meaningful, something really you can feel and have and love and so on. It's to do with us real people. Yes. Well, the novel or the play or the poem, of course, it's a piece of literature, it's a piece of imagination. Yes, but it's, as we say, it's realistic in the sense that it reflects reality. Somehow, it's a representation of reality. Okay? But in modernism, writers say, well, we are no longer sort of really keen about reflecting reality as it is or caring a lot about meanings. We want to say and to emphasize and to stress that arts is, or art as such really is art, is language, is form, is technique, is style, is, metaphors and the use of language and so on. So they say, well, meanings are not that, if you like, important, and we don't want really to pay attention and to focus all the time on this question of meanings and reflections on reality as it is, or realism as it is lived by people. Of course, modernism, as I said, as a trend, really encompasses so many funny things, especially as you can see, I'm saying here, really the artistic, the technicality, the, far away from meanings, the exact traditional, focus on meanings or on content. Modernists say, well, the form, the language, the style, the technique, the art is more important than the content. The content is there, yes, it is there, but it's not as much important as the form, the outside, the language itself, the words on the page themselves. This is the idea. And that's why, you find poets, departing far away from rhyme and meter and all this carry on, and the paying attention to the tradition, how a poem is written, how if it's metered or there's a rhyme or there's not, or a novel should have narrator and not have narrators, and so on. So all these technicalities to stick to traditions, to stick to the layers and the main principles of traditions, really writers departed from that. Modernists departed from that. And that's really the main framework here of what I'm saying here about modernism. Okay? Now, the poems I'm really here giving you, or I just chose for you one or two examples of that. Of course, as I said, could be as an example of early modernist poetry. You may say to me, well, doctor, you gave us, Walt Whitman's examples of poetry, which is, again, it's not rhymed. Again, there's no really organization and there's no real tradition. Yes, absolutely. Yes, I agree with you totally. Walt Whitman, the examples I gave you at the beginning of this term, the first lecture I gave you about Whitman, yes, is absolutely modernistic in this sense. And Whitman is really, in a way, he's a very, really strange man in every sense concerning his style of poetry. Now, modernists did more than Whitman. That's the idea. The question of how they really looked at traditions and principles and the standards, or the laws or the rules of things, the rules of writing and so on. Okay, so that's why people started to say, or writers or poets or even novelists say, technique is the art itself, and people said that, art as technique. Exactly, the style, the language, the narrative, the discourse, and so on. So really, this is the idea here. Please, I would like you to pay attention to that. Of course, modernism included more things than that. Of course, the focus on mythology, the focus on even on psychology, and so many other crazy things, really. They are all included in what is called modernism. Okay? So this trend, or this way of thinking and the way of, if you like, of writing, maybe you will come to it later on in your courses. I don't know what course, maybe in modern drama or on the modern novel. Later on, you will find that, I think, maybe could be clearly discovered or maybe explored to you in other texts. But here I want to just have a look, or to have a feeling of what might be seen as modernist poetry. Okay? Really, that's the idea. And here I gave you 3 examples, really. As you can see from my, let me share my example that I gave you, and I think you already have it. I gave you one example. As you can see, Edwin Arlington Robinson, as you can see, died 1935. And I gave you a poem here, another poem here, 2 poems by him. Another poet, really Robert Frost. He's really an amazing, important American poet. As you can see, died 1963. Again, here is a lovely poem called Mending Wall. I don't know if you have done that. I give this to my students in other courses. In my other courses to Introduction to Poetry, I give this as an example. Really, it's a lovely poem, as you shall see. But again, as I said, these are just feelings of samples of poetry. The next, and as you can see, I included for you the paraphrasing and the explaining and the analysis of the poem. I think you can see that. And the last example is our Arab Lebanese. Really, I like him a lot. Lebanese Gibran Khalid Gibran. He is the great Arab Lebanese American poet who emigrated to America as a young man with his family to America. Gibran Khalid Gibran, I think he is, or he was, I should say, a great forerunner of what is called, Udaba al-Mahjar, as we say in Arabic literature. Really, he was one of the founders of Adab al-Mahjar, of course, with Elia Abu Madi and some other names. Gibran was an amazing influence, and I really, really think he was such a big name in literature and in his really intelligent. And I think also I mentioned this to you, or not to you, to my students again in my introduction to literature. Again, in one course I give as an example of parable stories. The parables, because most of his poems or short stories or short sections can be included or classified as like, parables or fables. Gibran really was excellent in doing this. Here I included him for you only to have the feeling of his poetry that he wrote. Really, again, is a lovely, I think, lovely kind of poetry. And I included maybe 2 or 3 poems. The first one called Love, and the second poem called A Tear and a Smile, and another poem called Song of Fortune. I don't know, did I include another one? Yeah, another one is called The Poet. I think it should be the last one, I hope. Yeah, it's the last one. Now, please, I think I have put for you all these poems, and you are responsible for all of them. You should really study them all together. I will give you this lecture today's, and next week I will give you just one session, one more recording, and that's it, because I think I will let you go and do your homeworks and term papers and so on. So really, they are these poems I have here for you. Really, they are easy to understand, but I will read them with you together. We will explain them, especially here, as you can see. Robert Frost. I think I have given you everything. It's very clear. Now, Robinson here, as you can see, the first example, Edwin Arlington Robinson. He was, as you can see here, I gave very little autobiographical, little introduction, really. I don't care about his background or anything. But just maybe to let you know, of course, his themes were, as you can see, mostly about personal affairs, failures, artistic struggle, materialism, and the inevitability of change. And at the same time, adhering to traditional forms at a time when most poets were experimenting with the genre and using the modernist free verse, which he rejected to write. You see, so this is the example, if you like, of someone who was not really fully prepared to write modernist, although he was writing, as I said, in the same time, modernist poetry. And Robinson here gave us an example of what is called narrative poetry, or, because he said, he gave us, like an introduction to poetry, or what is poetry. And here, this poem, the first one, notice the 2 poems that are printed here embody the idea of narrative poetry, as an example of narrative poetry. That is, poetry can be seen as narrative. That is, you tell a story, you narrate a story in a poem, and when you read it, you think it's really a story, when you read it here. For example, here, the poem called Richard Cory, Richard Cory. Now, let me read that. Are you following, boys and girls?
Yes, Doctor.
You see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Now I want to announce one thing. I have here 6 people in my group. Here I have my, let me just for a second, now I remember. Let me read the names. I have 6 people whose names I have signed earlier on during the registration, and they are having a different exam, the different timing for the exam. I have 6 people: Shayma Al-Makhmari, Munira Al-Sinani, Afrah Salim Al-Shikeli, Wafa Salim Al-Ma'mari, and Sarah Harasi and Al-Rayyan Busaidi. 6 people here, 6 girls. You have clash in your exams, and I have signed this paper earlier on because Al-Rayyan sent me a message last time, and I told her I will specify for you a different time for the exam. You will have a different timing, and I want to send you. I will send you a message to tell me exactly when would you like the exam to take place. Do you want it in the same day but in a different time, in the evening, for example, or earlier on, or the next day, or 2 days earlier or 2 days later, or whatever? Please think about this and tell me exactly when do you want it. Okay, now you know yourselves. I'm sure you know that, but I will send you a confirmation email about this. Okay, but just now I remembered this, so I will announce it to everyone. Okay.
Doctor?
Yeah.
I don't have clash.
Your name is here. Wafa Salim Abdullah Al-Ma'mari.
I just checked my timetable for the finals, and there is no clash.
But yeah, but your name is mentioned here, and this is an official document by the department.
Yeah, because when at the beginning of the semester, I told the department I want to register Arabic literature, but I didn't.
Okay, Wafa. So you stay with your friends then?
Yeah.
So yeah, I will send the email to the rest, to the other 5 girls, to Shayma and Munira and Afrah and Sarah and Al-Rayyan. I will send them this email to confirm and to let me know, to confirm to me if this is true, still valid, is it? I will send you the email.
Yes, Doctor.
To confirm and to specify the exact time when you want me to do that. Okay, good.
Doctor, we will discuss together and come up with a date that suits all of us.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, good. Right, so let me go back to where I was. So yeah, look at the example here. As I said, this poem, as you can see, as I said here, really, this is an example of traditional poetry. It's not an example of modernist poetry, because we said that this man, Robinson, was against the modernist freestyle, if you like, or free verse or whatever. And here, as I said, he is giving us this poem as a form, or the 2 poems actually I have here for you, as an example of narrative poetry. That is a poetry which narrates a story, or which tells a story. Whenever Richard Cory went downtown, we people on the pavement looked at him. He was a gentleman from soul to crown, clean favored and impartially slim. You know, you can see the rhyme, town, crown, and him and slim. Wow. But you can see the narration, you know, as if Kan ya makan, there was a man who came down to town, blah, 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 blah. You know, it's really like telling a story. You're like your grandfather telling you a story. You know, when Richard Cory went downtown, we people on the pavement looked at him. And look at the narrator, we people. So here the narrator is a third person, which is funny, really. A person, one man or one guy speaking, but he said, we people, nahnu an-nas, you know? So he's speaking in the plural, which is funny. In a way, the narrator in one voice, but is speaking in the voice of the whole nation or of the whole people. So here the story is about this man called Richard Cory, and how the people of the town, you know, looking at him and how they think of him. He was a gentleman from soul to crown. You know, he was completely gentleman from top to toe, as we say, from head to toe, clean favored and impartially slim, you know. So as if to say he's absolutely clean, looking lovely and nice and etc. and slim. Sorry, did I say impartially? No, imperially. Sorry. And look at the adverb here, imperially. I think this is very amazing description to describe somebody as imperial. You know, I think I've never heard people saying you look imperial. You know, isn't it? Meaning, I don't know. I mean, the word imperial, we think of it in terms of politics, in terms of maybe in terms of being rich, in terms of economy, in terms of politics, economics, but not in terms of looks. Somebody looking imperially means, you know, like being very grand, sort of amazing, pompous, you know, arrogant looking man. Wow. And he was quietly arrayed, and he was always human when he talked, but still he fluttered pulses when he said, good morning, and he glittered when he walked. You know, again, still you can see the story here is telling us about him, and he was always quietly arrayed. Again, the really the funny, if you like, you know, the rhyme again, arrayed, that said, and talked and walked, the same thing, you know. And again, if you want to really scan the line, whenever Richard Cory went downtown, you know, whenever Richard Cory went downtown, you know, you can see it's like really rhymed here in a very nice rhyme. I don't know, did I mention something? Yeah, maybe here I will I think it's mentioned somewhere here in my commentary. I think I mentioned that, I don't know, but it's really an amazing. Did I mention? I think I should have. To say the idea about really his poetry here in a very lovely fashion, right? He was always quietly arrayed. You know, here arrayed, again, the way he was dressed and the way he's looking, or he appeared, or he showed himself, quietly, lovely looking, etc. He was always human when he talked, and the way he speaks to you, he looks absolutely lovely and human. But still he fluttered pulses when he said, you know, very emotional sometimes. The way he speaks, like fluttering, you know, to flutter, like birds, you know, flying or moving, or pulses. Notice the word pulses when he said good morning, and he glittered when he walked. Again, look at the words he's using, verbs really. Talked, fluttered, and glittered. You know, this is really all these positive images about telling us about this man, Richard Cory. And he was rich, yes, richer than a king. He was rich, yes, richer than a king, and admirably schooled in every grace. In fine, we thought that he was everything to make us wish that we were in his place. Again, the rhyme king, thing, grace, place. And he was rich, yes, richer than a king. Again, stress. And he was rich, yes, rich, yes, richer than a king. You know, 5 really pentameter. You know how to scan. You did poetry, didn't you? Did you learn how to scan lines in poetry? Hello, my boys and girls. You did?
Yes.
Yeah. So you can see here really the lovely really style that he's using here in his poetry. Again, look at the lovely association. He was rich, richer than a king, and admirably schooled means he went to the best schools that you can ever have, or you can ever think, or you can ever dream of. The lovely school of every grace. He learned all the good things in life. The school that they taught him all the lovely things in life. In fine, we thought he was everything. Meaning he had really completely everything. And we thought he was completely perfect. To make us wish that we were in his place. That's why we all really envied him. We wanted to be in his place. Every one of us envied him. So on we worked and waited for the light, and went without the meat and cursed the bread. And Richard Cory, one calm summer night, went home and put a bullet through his head. Oh, no. Sarah. Hello? My boys and girls?
Yes, doctor.
What's wrong with him? Why did he shoot himself?
Maybe because the people see him that he is rich and he is supposed to be happy, but in fact he was miserable and lonely.
Okay, Maram, yeah, okay, yeah.
Yes, maybe they didn't saw something in him. They just saw the perfect picture of him.
Yeah. What else? Shayma? Makhmari, Shayma. Are you here? Yeah, Shayma can't speak, maybe her microphone. Yeah, okay. Really, this is shocking, isn't it? Shocking, absolutely shocking. Why did he kill himself? What's wrong with him? And so on we worked. We? Who's we? Hello?
The down people, doctor.
Who is speaking? My friend Uthman?
Yes, doctor.
Is it Uthman?
Yes.
Yeah, can you elaborate? Can you say more?
Actually, doctor, the people thought that his appearance makes him perfect, makes him like without any mistake, complete,
Uh-huh.
a complete person. But see, when he disappeared, he killed himself. So that shows that this person is not perfect. His appearance is just fake appearance.
Yeah, but why do we need to kill ourselves? I mean, people, there must be something really terrible to let someone to kill himself, isn't it?
Of course, doctor. Of course.
Yeah. And when he said we, who's this we then? Can you guess who is the speaker? Who are
The,
these
da-
people?
the
Huh?
downtown people, the people who thought or who wished to be in his place.
Yeah, but do you see that there are rich people or poor people or what kind of people?
They are poor people.
Yeah, because he said, notice, we went without the meat and cursed the bread. Look at this. Went without the meat and cursed the bread. How? Who can curse the bread? Bread is something.
The bread is for poor people, so who eats meat like the person, the gentle person, is considered very rich man at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. Really, to be, I think I mentioned it to you here in the little analysis. I don't know. I think I said that. I will look at it in a minute. Really, here the word, and so we worked. Notice we worked. So here, really, the story here is about Richard Corey, who is a master, who is a rich man, who is an ugly white man. And these people were slaves. They were workers. They were horrible slaves. They were workers. And they were suppressed. They were killed. They were nearly tortured to death by working all the time. They were miserably treated. And that's why they were looking at him. That's why he said, at the end of the day, we hope that we can get something to eat at the end of the day, to eat some meat. But our day went away without the bread, without meat. And worse, we cursed the bread. People, nobody would curse the bread. Nobody curses the bread, because bread, as we say, a ni'mah. And no matter what, you don't curse the bread. And he said, because of our terrible misery, and we are eating our bread with nothing, nothing, so we even started to hate bread, because we are given nothing with this bread. And so on we worked. We were forced to work days and night, and waited for the light. Because we are working the whole day, from early morning till darkness. So we were waiting for the sun to set, so we will be free, to be given freedom. And then we go home, maybe to our places where we sleep, but we don't have any food. And maybe hear the story. Richard Corey, one calm summer night, went home and put a bullet through his head. So he killed himself because as Uthman said, it's to do with something about appearance and something maybe you don't know what's wrong with this man. He may have a lot of funny, unbelievable things going on in his mind. Could be his guilt, could be to say that this man is feeling really terribly guilty against his own people, or the way he's treating these people, right? So that's why really here, you know, the shocking event is to kill yourself. And I think this is, of course, it's dramatized, and it's really not convincing in no way. So really here I say here that the theme as appearance versus reality, appearance as being deceiving. The poem talks about the story of a man in his own town and shows, of course, how he is seen by his people. The narrator and the narrator's community have spent observing, idolizing, and envying Richard Cory, and one fully understands Cory's psychology or humanity. The poem leaves the truth about whatever that drives Cory to suicide, unspoken or unknown. But readers do not need to know the exact reason for Cory's ending to get what the poem is trying to say. Really, we don't know for sure, and that's not important. Namely, of course, we say that no matter how well off a person may seem, and no matter how happy a person may seem or may be, people cannot easily understand and see reality based on appearances alone. The poem is typical narrative poem because the narrator speaks on behalf of the community. We people, he said, portrays Richard Cory as a man who on the surface seems to have it all: money, good looks, gentility, connection, etc., etc. But in reality, no one knows why he killed himself. The irony is that the narrator and the narrator's community aspire to be and to live like Richard Cory. But at the end, they get shocked why he killed himself. The poem makes it clear that these other people actually have no idea what the reality of Cory's life is like. So other themes are wealth versus happiness and envy versus admiration. The poem here is saying, of course, clearly saying that wealth and money do not make happiness. Richard Cory presents a sharp contrast between the rich and the poor. Cory's money does not need or does not guarantee his happiness. The narrator's community said, we, people on the pavement, appear to be geographically separated from Richard Cory. They seem to be, of course, regular residents of these downtown streets, or real people, or workers, or even merchants, while Cory only visits this neighborhood. Even I said slaves, really, I said slaves, and I insist that. Cory does not belong to the area. He is above it all in society and class. The contrast is even more sharpened when the narrator's community must give up luxuries and delicacies, putting up instead with plain, repetitive meals, and they work hard for their money. Cory doesn't need to work at all. He's so rich, and you don't know how. Despite all that, the story of the poem tells us that Cory's money, by implication, did not shield him from pain, from guilt, from suicide. Money is not everything in life. And in so many ways, cash won't always bring happiness. What do you think? Do you agree with me here?
I don't think he was a bad person. I don't think they were like slaves to him because of the positive description of him by the narrator.
Okay, I respect your opinion. Really, this is clear, as I said, in so many ways. Again, here I mentioned this in the next again about the question of envy. Notice the poem is about envy and admiration. right? I said that here. The narrator and the narrator's community have somehow felt deep envy of Richard Cory, but of course they admire him too. Throughout the poem, there is this ambivalent sense, you know, yes and no situation. Envying Cory and yet fundamentally admiring him and taking pleasure in being around him. Both envy and admiration, though, isolate the community from Cory. So that's why here I say that. But the question really here I'm saying, you know, is the idea about, you know, the poem itself, if you like, as an example of maybe a traditional, lovely example of American poetry, still in the middle, exactly in the middle and the heart of modernist movement at that time. The next poem is by the same man, the same poet, the same thing. Again, really lovely poem. Again, the rhyme and the carry on. Miniver Cheevy, child of scorn, grew lean while he assailed the seasons. He wept that he was ever born, and he had reasons. Miniver loved the days of old, when swords were bright and steeds were prancing. The vision of a warrior bold would set him dancing. Miniver sighed for what was not, and dreamed and rested from his labors. He dreamed of Thebes and Camelot and Priam's neighbors. Miniver mourned the ripe renown that made so many a name so fragrant. He mourned romance now on the town, and art a vagrant. Miniver loved the Medici, albeit he had never seen none. He would have sinned incessantly could he have been one. Miniver cursed the commonplace and eyed khaki suit with loathing. He missed the medieval grace of iron clothing. Miniver scorned the gold he thought, but sore annoyed was he without it. Miniver thought and thought and thought and thought about it. Miniver Cheevy, born so late, scratched his head and kept on thinking. Miniver coughed and called it fate and kept on drinking. Wow, drinking? What's this? Yeah. Yeah, any ideas? I left this one. I did not give you any. I mean, in the net, you can find so many really explanations of this poem. I did not really quote for you any of that. But I thought this is really, again, funny, amazing story about Miniver Cheevy. What do you think? Can you tell me briefly, what do you think of this poem? Uthman, my friend.
Yes, doctor.
Yeah. Have you Googled the poem Miniver Cheevy?
Not yet.
Have you?
I will not yet. I will do it before exam.
Okay. Yeah, but by looking at it, what do you think this man is what?
Actually, doctor, I didn't got the whole idea of the poem, but the
Yeah,
words
I will.
dancing.
Okay. I will explain it. But anybody can. Yeah. Okay. Anybody can. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, who's speaking?
I have
Maybe
a guess.
Yeah, okay.
I have a guess. I don't know if it's wrong.
Okay, yeah, Hajar. Yes, Hajar, yes.
So maybe he feels that he don't belong to the period of time he was born in. Maybe he feels that his soul is old. Maybe I don't know.
Hajar, where do you live, Hajar?
What do you mean? In
I heard cocks crowing in your area in the background.
Here in Muscat.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cocks are crowing in the neighborhood. Wow, this is lovely. I like that. Yeah, Hajar. Yes, I think you got an idea here, and I think this is really interesting to see that. Yeah. Anybody else? Anybody else?
Doctor, maybe he talk about weight and free choice, uh, about being rich and his dream to be like his labors and the joy and pleasure they live. He compares
Yeah.
between him and the labors. Maybe.
Yeah. Okay. Now, of course, Miniver Chivi, again, this is, yeah?
I think the poet wants to criticize the area in which he is living and how people are living, but he is like describing it through the character of Miniver. Like Miniver sounds like an old-fashioned boy who likes everything old, but not everything relates to this era of time.
Yeah, I mean, at the end, of course, yeah, thank you, Sarah. Yes, really the idea is quite interesting again. Remember the same thing here. The poet is telling us a story about Nineveh. You can see, if I read, Nineveh Chivi, child of scorn. Again, the exact summary here. Child of scorn. Why scorn? Again, as if to say, again, when you say, grew lean while he assailed the seasons, he wept that he was ever born, and he had reasons. So maybe here we say that this man is always scornful. He really does not like what he has or what he is. Although, as you can see, maybe he was born, maybe, we don't know exactly, I mean, from the beginning here we say, grew lean while he assailed the reasons. Meaning, he wanted to tell us briefly his reasons why he was, unhappy. He wept that he was ever born. As if to say, I regret even, I hate the whole situation. Somebody who maybe is totally unhappy with his existence, totally unhappy with his life, totally who feels rotten, absolutely rotten and bad, and he has reasons for that. He had so many reasons to be, for example, unhappy, and he will tell us maybe some of those reasons. And remember, at the last line of the poem, again, the funny thing is he was drinking, so could be he was drunk when he was reading all this poem. Could be a drunkard man who feels absolutely miserable and angry with his life and unbelievably terrible about whatever things that he had his reasons, you know? And he's comparing his present situation with his old past, maybe with the past, which could be a better past. So that's why the poet is repeating more and more details about Nineveh. So he wept that he was ever born, and he had reasons. So he's regretting even, he said, I wish, as if to say, I wish that I had never been born, or, I were never, etc. So the idea really is that the terrible regret, the terrible pain, the terrible feeling that he is having at the moment of writing this, or the moment of speaking this, is that he is in total misery. And he said, I have my reasons. And notice, he had his reasons. Remember, the narrator here is narrating a story. So the speaker is speaking to us about Nineveh. So here, narrative poem narrated by a third-person narrator, a third-person speaker. When he said he wept, he had, and so on. Okay, let's see what are the reasons. Nineveh loved the days of old, when swords were bright and steeds were prancing. The vision of a warrior bold would set him dancing. So he's imagining the old days when we had great men, he said. When people used to use the sword and the horse. Steeds, really steeds means horses. Bride and steeds were prancing, horses dancing. So he's imagining back life with those old days when Americans came to America and they had all these wars on horses. And they were so powerful, and men were men, using swords and knives and arrows and spears and whatever. And they were great knights. They were great knights, And he said they were warriors. They were great warriors. They were bold, courageous warriors. Who would set him dancing? He's saying, when I see this image, when I see this picture, I would dance with happiness. But now I feel horrible. But now there's nothing like that. We have lost all this. Okay? Nineveh sighed for what was not. Sighed for what was not, and dreamed and rested from his labors. He dreamed of Thebes and Camelot and Priam's neighbors. Nineveh here really is even very imaginative. Notice, sighed for what was not, as if to say he was imagining what is imaginative, which could never be real. He went back and back and back in his mind, in his history, to mythology, going back to old maybe days, and dreamed, he said, dreamed and rested from his labors. Now he's working a lot, and he's so tired. So he wants to go back in his dreams, back to Greek time. And that's what he said, Thebes and Camelot. The city and the palace of Camelot and the Lady of Shalat. You know, I asked you, did I think I asked you, I don't know, is it you or somebody else? Have you done British Survey 2 or 3? British Survey 3?
Yes.
Are you doing Survey 3 now?
Yeah.
Very good. Now tell me, did you study something by Tennyson, Alfred Tennyson? Lord Alfred Tennyson, the English 19th century, late 19th century poet. Tennyson.
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Okay, no problem. Now, really, the poet here in that poem, Tennyson, wrote a great poem called "The Lady of Shalott." The Lady of Shalott, and it's very lovely, amazing poem by Alfred Tennyson, Lord Alfred Tennyson. That poem is summarizing the use of mythology, Arthurian mythology. You know King Arthur and the Round Table and his knights? Have you heard of that? King Arthur in medieval literature. Hello? Girls, boys? Uthman?
No, doctor, I didn't hear him. I didn't hear about him.
You did not do anything by I'm saying the Arthurian legends and Arthurian mythologies, no?
Do you mean, doctor, the ones in Scandinavian countries?
You mean no, you mean Beowulf?
I don't know, doctor.
No, it's not in Scandinavian. Really, the Arthurian legends by King Arthur, because English people believe. Have you done in Uthman, please? In Survey 1, British Survey 1, you didn't do anything by medieval literature, medieval English literature, medieval Chaucer. Uthman?
I did, doctor, the ones which was the 18th century, I think.
No. In Survey 1, you should have studied something about the beginnings of English literature.
Yes, doctor. I forget the name, the proper name of that poem.
Yeah, Chaucer, Geoffrey Chaucer, wrote about that in many of his poems, like the Canterbury Tales. And Tennyson, really in the 19th century, went back to old mythology, to Greek mythology, and to Arthurian mythology, because King Arthur and his Round Table, it's like this Robin Hood story. You know Robin Hood?
Yes, I know. Doctor, I remembered the Anglo-Saxon literature.
Yes.
And then the Anglo-Norman literature.
Yeah.
Yes.
So really, Tennyson wrote a great poem called "The Lady of Shalott." The Lady of Shalott. And here, when you see the poem said Camelot, when he said he dreamed of Thebes, which is the city of where King Oedipus when King Oedipus became the king, it was his city called Thebes. And we say in Arabic, Tiba, right? And Camelot is another city which is imagined by, again, by the English, if you like, people. They gave this as is the place where King Arthur in his round table, King Arthur in his round table with his knights. Anyway, it's a lovely, really reference. Maybe you should go back one day and look at these things. So here, Miniver is imagining all these unbelievable things about the past. Okay, so Miniver then here we say is dreaming a lot and going back and back and back in history. So he's admiring still, funnily, in a strange way, looking back at history. Again, Miniver mourned the ripe renown that made so many a name so fragrant. He mourned romance now on the town, and art a vagrant. Again, still dreaming of the past. He said about the most famous things, ripe here, he said ripe renown, you know, meaning the absolutely known, famous, good, unbelievably strong, you know, names and people who are famous and important. Again, when he said, that's what he means, that made so many a name so fragrant, meaning to give these big names absolutely lovely reputation. Because here say, how can you give name a fragrant, you know, to give, really to talk about the absolute strong reputation of people. But notice he said he mourned, meaning he feels regretful. He is crying for those lovely days that he had lost. Now there are no good people, no important people, no lovely, as you can see here, he said, famous men. And he said, he is crying also for those romances. Again, he said, romance. Again, now on the town, and art, a fragrant. So the idea that he is still really dreaming and mourning and dreaming and feeling sad and miserable, and he has his reasons to feel sad and to feel bad about losing all these great things. His past, his famous men, famous people, famous cities, famous romances, lovely romances, absolutely great arts, and so on. You know, and he goes on and on and on in that. And I think I would leave this for you to finish this. Please try to check this, Google the name and check more references on this poem, because really it's interesting as an example. Okay, but the last one, as I said, is really funny, because you say, oh. So this man is saying all these things when he's really drunk, and he kept on drinking, you know, coughed and called it fate and kept on drinking. You say, well. Again, when you say born late, bell born too late, scratched his head and kept on thinking. So really, this is a funny story here. Please, as I say, check it, and that's it. I will next time I will go on with the next two poems, and I will finish this. As I said, next week the first lecture will be and could be our last meeting, unless you want me to go on. I would go on, no problem. Okay, any question, boys and girls? That's it. If you don't really have any question, then that's it for today. Thank you for being with me here, and I will see you next time. Okay, right.